Nothing in this recording is intended as investment advice, and the people in this recording may hold positions in the companies they talk about. Do not make any investment based solely on a tip or recommendation. Please do your own research.
Hello and welcome to Zak's Traders Cafe. Today I'm joined by Melissa Sturgess, who's CEO at Ananda Developments. Hi today, Melissa.
Hi, Zach. Good to chat again.
Right, quite a lot of news flow in the recent past from Ananda, and I think the latest was regarding a conference you presented at. Maybe you can tell us a bit about that.
Yes, I suppose it's all part of making sure shareholders and potential new shareholders understand that we're really now, I think we describe ourselves as a drug development company. So it's making this distinction from the cannabis space, which has some obviously legacy issues, and maybe moving us more into drug development because we're now very much focused on developing CBD into licensed drugs. And that has come about because the NHS and NICE, the National Institute for Clinical and Healthcare Excellence, have specifically asked for research and evidence into the efficacy of CBD, the non-psychoactive part of the cannabis plant, so that we can get CBD drugs onto the NHS. So basically, you know, the mantra is for us available to everyone who needs them, not just those who can afford them. So getting us into that more pharmaceutical space is really important, and it was a really good conference. There are some very interesting mid-tier pharmaceutical companies that are quite interested in inflammatory pain conditions that we're working on, and they're interested in some of the indications we're working on, i.e. chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathy, so chemotherapy-induced pain, and endometriosis, which is quite a, has an increasingly high profile as a condition because so many women suffer from it and they take such a long time to be diagnosed, and it's very debilitating and there's nothing really that works. So yeah, a really good conference for us, and we will be doing more in that space going forward.
I mean, the key point in terms of what you've just said, though, is that it's not, which is very often the case, it's not a private company touting the NHS or NICE for, to say that this is our thing, you've got to use it. They're actually looking to you and the cannabinoids to help people's lives.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I think it's pretty interesting and actually pretty cool that the UK has done this. In many other jurisdictions, we've seen the legalization of medical cannabis, and then we've seen an increased move into a recreational market, or what we sort of call a quasi-rec market, where doctors are prescribing, but we're not really sure what they're prescribing for. The UK has very clearly said, we want evidence. We want to see proper pharmaceutical medicines developed. We want them to be licensed by the MHRA, and then we will allow them to be prescribed widespread to everyone who needs them. So I think actually the 256-page report that NICE wrote in 2019, I think that's actually the only one I've seen in the world. They said that in their view, there is evidence for the use of medical cannabis, but they said there needs to be a lot more. And they made a call for companies to do the work. They also made available through the NIHR a whole lot of funding. So we've been able to tap into those grants and basically just answer the question. You know, we've been asked by the NHS and NICE to do the work. We've tapped into the funding that's available, and we're cracking on with the teams at Edinburgh to deliver trials with the objective of delivering medicines onto the NHS.
So the Scottish NHS or the NHS, other organisations like that, they're actually paying you to carry out the drug development work.
Yes. So the way these grants work is the grants are given to the universities, and we provide our formulation, so our CBD drug, to the trial, and we have the option to commercialize, because obviously the investigators who are looking at these CBD formulations really want to get them into their patients. Chemotherapy-induced peripheral neuropathy, that trial's being run by Professor Mari Fallon. She has an unmet need in her patients, so she's very enthusiastic that that our drug then gets developed, and that will obviously be our job to go through the licensing. The same with endometriosis. It's a slightly earlier trial in that it's a pilot trial to look at a UK-wide trial, which would be much bigger and more comprehensive. But again, the objective is really clear. Women suffer massively from pain associated with endometriosis. At the moment, there isn't anything that they are really being prescribed that helps. We know anecdotally from women who've bought over-the-counter CBD, even though it has very little regulation around it, there isn't really any data around it. Women don't really know what they're buying, and they don't know how much CBD is really in it, and a lot of the tests show that there is very little in it, but they're still finding it helpful. So getting a licensed CBD medicine that a specialist can prescribe on the NHS for these women is very much the objective of these clinicians. And they're world-leading investigators in their field, so they're the right people. They have the confidence of the NHS and NICE to be doing these trials. We believe, well, you know, we developed a formulation that they like, and our objective is obviously the commercial one, which is to get the trial data and then move towards getting these drugs licensed and available.
And once that happens, what's the addressable market? Where do you see Ananda being at that point?
So our first target is very much NHS. So 1 in 10 women suffer from endometriosis. The current cost to the NHS runs into the billions. The current cost to the NHS in chemotherapy-induced pain is also in the billions. So huge addressable markets. Our focus, as I said, first stop the UK. We've got 77 million people. The NHS is burdened. We have people not back to work as they should be post-COVID. So we think that's a really good target to start with. And obviously, with the funding for these trials coming from NHS, NIHR, these government regulatory bodies, our focus is really to help them get these products into mainstream prescribing. Of course, we have our eyes set on the US, and we're starting to communicate over there with the regulatory side to understand exactly what we would need to do with our formulation to make it a licensed drug in those markets in the future as well. So, of course, as every drug development company, we have our sights on the US, but a really good first port of call for us is very much the UK market, and getting the confidence of the NHS and the prescribers. You know, that's an important first step for us.
And so going forward, you would be rubbing shoulders with the existing pharma companies, but obviously with your CBD angle.
Yeah, exactly. So we are looking at unmet needs. So there is a gap there that needs to be filled. So we don't really have to go head to head with another drug that is out there to treat these indications that we're currently focused on. And we have other indications in our pipeline as well, because, and I should just say this as a sort of a sidestep, that really our view and the literature and the data is showing that CBD is very much an anti-inflammatory. So it acts not only on the endocannabinoid system in this modulating, regulating way, but also down-regulates many of the inflammatory pathways that are associated and prevalent in these complex pain conditions like chemotherapy-induced pain, like endometriosis, like fibromyalgia, those sorts of indications. So yeah, we won't be competing head to head. Where we see the opportunities for us going forward as we start to deliver data from these trials is potentially inbound investment from one of these companies that's interested in some of these inflammatory conditions. That's probably where we would see industry showing some interest in us. And obviously, as we start to get data we will generate more interest amongst sort of regular investors who are interested in the drug development and pharmaceutical space.
Melissa Sturgess, CEO at Ananda Developments, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks, Zach. Good to chat.